So guys, I want to talk about Ghost Recon and kind of the history of this gaming franchise, but also kind of what happened to Ghost Recon, because we've been talking on the channel quite a bit now about different series that were doing so well in the past and then all of a sudden end up having one bad title or a couple of bad titles, and now the entire series is in jeopardy of really continuing. So let's talk about what happened here with Ghost Recon. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, guys, a franchise that I think when you look at it as a whole, it's got to be one of the most popular in the Tom Clancy, games out there, between like Rainbow Six and Splinter Cell and of course now The Division. And all of these games though, guys, are pretty wildly popular. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, though, this dates back to 2001. And we had a number of titles, guys. I mean, you're looking at, some of these obviously were just kind of side stories and DLC and things of that nature for Ghost Recon. But I really got into this franchise, guys, and Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, which in my personal opinion, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good game, very different. I really liked some of the concepts they had for Advanced Warfighter. And then the second one came out, I didn't like it quite as much. But all in all, guys, this was a franchise that was kind of beyond its time when it came to like the futuristic warfare, like games similar like Call of Duty and games of that nature like Titanfall that were more of like these futuristic shooters, obviously with the jetpacks and stuff, but Advanced Warfighter and Ghost Recon wasn't necessarily like that, but a lot of the advanced like tech and gear and weaponry that you were using, which was something that was really cool about this franchise. Then of course, guys, I mean, everything was going decent. I mean, if you look at, the Metacritic scores, the reception based around most of these games, they did pretty well. I mean, there were a couple that didn't do that well overall, like Ghost Recon 2 didn't do very well as far as the Metacritic scores are concerned. But all in all, guys, overall, when you look at all of these different games, the one that is a glaring issue was obviously the most recent game, that being Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And this can be for a number of reasons, guys, why this game did so bad. There's a whole slate of stuff and problems with this game in particular. Because look, when you look at all these games, I mean, I believe like Ghost Recon Future Soldier, I thought that was really good. You had Ghost Recon Phantoms and Ghost Recon Wildlands. Even though Wildlands wasn't like super great, people did enjoy Wildlands and they were excited about the next continuation. Even though, guys, I feel like Future Soldier was kind of the last really good Ghost Recon game before things kind of went south with Ghost Recon Wildlands, in my personal opinion. Not completely, but then Breakpoint really hurt this franchise in a major way, guys. In an article that was written, of course, by Joshua Rivera of Kotaku, during an earnings call Thursday, Ubisoft gave investors a brutally frank appraisal of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, its latest release, and vowed to implement significant changes to our production processes to fix the game. In a prepared statement you can read online, Ubisoft CEO Vez Guillemot laid out the reasons the publisher believes the open-world special ops shooter didn't sell as well as expected. The new game, released just 2.5 years after Ghost Recon Wildlands, moves the series' action to a fictional island and introduced survival elements in a loot grind that struck many critics, including our own, as an unnecessary lightweight imitation of systems in other games, including Ubisoft's own Division series. Guillemot noted that changes Breakpoint made to the Ghost Recon formula have been strongly rejected by a significant portion of the community. Guillemot also noted the game's negative critical reception, compounding that somewhat paradoxically is what he said Breakpoint wasn't different enough to really stand out. So I think that's very true, actually, that it wasn't different enough. And look, guys, I've said this on a number of occasions. The Division is a game that is intriguing to me, but it was never like, it never felt like it was going to be as good of the same stature as Ghost Recon or Rainbow Six, but it's got a pretty solid community. And here's the thing. Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I feel they moved away from like the Ghost Recon feel, and it feels more like the Division. More, they're trying other things that just make it not feel so much like Ghost Recon. And I've said this on a number of occasions. I never understood why Ghost Recon is being focused on more than games like Splinter Cell that Ubisoft owns, because Splinter Cell has been a franchise that we've been wanting so much. I even look at why was The Division 2 made, as well as Ghost Recon Breakpoint, when you have a perfectly good franchise in Splinter Cell that people are yearning for and really want. It just didn't really make much sense to me, but I feel like those single player stories and even, how you can monetize a Splinter Cell game was something that has been thought about, and they just don't think they can really probably make much money on it, which is kind of ludicrous to me. But Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I feel like they're trying to just copy success from other franchises that they own or that they don't own, which is very interesting strategy to say the least. Guillemot cites Breakpoint's underperformance and the Division 2's less severe but still disappointing performance as a primary reason for the company's just announced delays of some of its most high-profile upcoming games. So basically, obviously, guys, the games that have pretty much been, at this point, been delayed, there's a lot of them. I mean, we're looking at Watch Dogs Legion, which looks really good. We're talking Rainbow Six Quarantine, amongst others, guys. It's very unfortunate, to say the least, that these are games that are like people are excited about, and they're pushing that back because they're trying to kind of restructure what they're doing as far as their operations are concerned, which I think is a really good idea. But honestly, guys, I think that what happened with with Ghost Recon, not only was it just bad reception and stuff, it was also just the microtransactions and just everything that was put around this game was just so bad. And I'm not going to really get into much of like the microtransaction stuff. You guys can look that stuff up on a number of different YouTubers who have actually covered that stuff. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just talking about what happened in this franchise as a whole. We're talking a franchise that had significant incline, did very well, lots of really good additions to the franchise, and then I believe Ghost Recon Wildlands was the turning point. It just wasn't as good as I think. Didn't feel as much like Ghost Recon. It started feeling kind of like The Division, which is not something that I personally really wanted. Not because I don't like The Division, I just want it to be its own thing, and I want Ghost Recon to be its own thing. And so I think that they started doing a little bit more of these copy-pasting of what worked somewhat in the past, but also taking it from other franchises and IPs that Ubisoft owns and kind of implementing those things into Ghost Recon Wildlands. And then, of course, it really went south with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And so I think what's happening, though, is good for Ubisoft as a whole. Instead of copying, pasting, and thinking that these things are okay to be taken from their other franchises and stuff, taking a full-blown overhaul and really just seeing like what they need to do to fix the problems within some of these games. I think it's very, very important moving forward for these games like Watch Dogs Legion, because a lot of these titles that are coming out now, even Assassin's Creed, they are either being oversaturated completely in the market. Assassin's Creed especially was as a franchise that's they've been making so many games, treating it almost like Call of Duty. And I think, though, that now they got to really take a look in the mirror and say to themselves, look, we need to kind of take our time with these games, can't be going for these quick cash grabs. And I think that ultimately, guys, what happened with this franchise was it had not one but two games really that have brought the series down to its knees. And I think now, if you're a fan of Ghost Recon, I don't think it's all doom and gloom by any stretch of the imagination, because these games all have sold relatively well, even though Breakpoint obviously it definitely took us a massive step backwards with the Ghost Recon franchise. But all it takes is one game to get us back in the right direction and get that incline moving up. But I think part of it is, fix the things in Ghost Recon Breakpoint at this point, and work on games like Splinter Cell and like Watch Dogs and Rainbow Six Quarantine. Come back to Ghost Recon, but give it time. Let us, have some breathing room here. Let's go ahead, get, kind of regroup and come up with some really fresh, awesome ideas. There's probably a million different things that you could do with Ghost Recon and move this franchise forward, but take your time with it. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about the Ghost Recon franchise? Where do you think it went wrong? Let me know in the comments section below. And for more Ghost Recon content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.